This is the Lamborghini Lambo V12 Vision GT Supercar, and it's one of the craziest cars ever made, except it wasn't made because it only exists digitally in this video game, except for this one model that they actually made, and of course this Lego version, which looks almost as crazy as the real thing. Virtually. This set is $27, has 230 pieces, and I think ranks pretty highly as one of the strangest Speed Champions cars ever produced. Crazy angles, confusing gaps, some neon blue up in there. If you think this model looks weird, don't worry, I too am quick to judge, but let's take a look at the real car and see if we can't broaden some perspectives. Okay, this is just about as crazy looking, but make like the market and bear with me. Only one of these cars was made in real life, and even then I don't think it's a real car, I think it's more of a model. It was made to be debuted at the Gran Turismo World Championships in 2019. Gran Turismo, of course, being a racing video game, which of course translates to Big Turismo, and the car looks cool, digitally, I think. The real car was designed by real Lamborghini designers. They said it was designed along with this video game to help make Lamborghini appeal to a young audience as being cool. As if that was a challenge. I hear next they're working on a concept to finally get young college frat guys to be interested in posters of swimsuit models. But back to relating this real car to the Lego car. The real car was designed as a concept car, and concepts by nature are playgrounds, testing grounds, creative opportunities to have some fun and build something a little weird. I think Lego designers with this set did something similar, had a little fun and built something a little weird. And I mean that sincerely, that's not a compliment insult, which is a compliment plus insult, which is a term that I thought I came up with on my own until I found it on Urban Dictionary, and then I learned that I am as clever as the writers at Urban Dictionary, which in itself is a compliment insult. Anyway, creativity. Judging this Lego build without comparing it directly to the real car would be doing the build a disservice, which is exactly the wrong order. That's the order that I did things in. I built the car, I didn't know the real car, and I went, this car looks weird. And then I looked at the real car and I went, oh, never mind. I think the Lego designers did as well as they could. Let's go part by part, virtually, but in reality. Starting with the wheels on the real car. Wheels crazy, cool, big, gold, cool. And on the Lego model, cool printed tiles. Looks nice. Probably doesn't have much use outside of this set. Crazy fenders are one of the standout features of the real car, including like these floating sections of the front fenders, which you literally extend out into open air on the real car, which is not as easy to do in the real world, or on a Lego model at this scale. There's a split down the middle of the real car, revealing a V12 gold engine underneath, and that is depicted in the Lego model. With some, I mean, you can kind of see the gold if you look down in there, but that build technique was super cool. Those two pieces that fold open, and the hinges themselves are the gold parts, and that let that shape be achieved. There's a wicked rear wing on this car, another standout feature. I guess all the features on this car are pretty standout, but a rear wing in the shape of a W, which of course stands for wing, and again, it's a very interesting build technique. Half that wing was folded down from within the center of that previously mentioned folding other part. And speaking of letters, what shape are those headlights and tail light? If you said Y, you're correct. And to answer your question, it's because Lamborghini's got like a Y motif going on, and if you look at the headlights or the tail light of this model, you can vaguely see a Y. They also got a motif of hexagons going on. Those are less evident in this build, at least at this scale. The shocks on the real car, are also depicted on this Lego model, except on the real car, they're kind of like hidden and embedded within like the cockpit area of the car. In the model, they're like tiny little prints that I didn't know what they were until I looked up that part of the real car. The exhaust on this car is out there. I mean it literally. And on the model, it's very out there, extended way out the back. The build techniques are very cool. They use like butcher knives and Shuri's blasters to try to depict those, but use caution because those exhausts are so out there, they're gonna fall off this car every time you pick it up. That driver's seat, or cockpit as I've been calling it, is a one-seater. You sit right in the center, and it even opens up like the cockpit of a fighter jet, or like the mouth of a big ugly dragon, which is applicable because this car looks like one of those things. But for the first time in Speed Champions at this scale, the driver is actually laying at a reclined position, not attached to any studs inside that driver's seat, which is a lot more accurate for the way a Formula 1 driver would sit in a car. And yet none of the Speed Champions cars have achieved that same reclined position for any of their minifigures. The solo minifigure included in this set is a cool blonde female figure in a cool new racing suit. I was confused as to why this was the figure included. I was also quick to judge, and if you're like me, do me a favor, pause this video right now and Google Lamborghini Lambo V12 Vision GT. Spoiler, it's a video by Supercar Blondie, a channel with literally millions of subscribers, and it's her having a look and taking a tour of the real Lamborghini Lambo GT. And if this Lego minifigure is not a reference to that channel, then I will eat my hat. Which you'll notice I don't have right now because I've been wrong recently, and I'm looking for a replacement. Excuse me. I do like that race suit though, and I'd love to have more torsos with official Lamborghini logos on them, and those legs will look great with some future version of a lizard or reptilian-like Lego minifigure. And speaking of reptiles, they're often green, and speaking of color, this car is depicted, I think, in mostly an olive green color, which I think is actually pretty accurate compared to the real car. But the interesting thing is, this Vision came out in 2019, along with the Lamborghini Sion, which you can see on my wall. The Sion I've also seen depicted often in an olive green kind of color in real life, and yet in LEGO Technic they built it with a bright yellowish green. I think the reason for this is, unlike the Olive Garden where when you're here you're family, in LEGO's olive green color, when you're here you're statistically more expensive per piece on Bricklink, and so I don't think it would have been financially feasible for LEGO to have made the Sion in olive green. But for all the pieces on this car which aren't obviously olive green, there are plenty of printed and stickered parts. Printed parts like those interesting blue and green combination colored headlights, and little Lamborghini logos printed, and plenty of stickered pieces. There's a little GT sticker, of course standing for Gran Turismo. There's a little 63 sticker on there, which of course stands for the number of years since Lamborghini was founded, to the point where this car was created, slash a lot of Lamborghini designers are big fans of George Russell, slash it's the number of stickers on this car if you use a little bit of hyperbole. But speaking of stickers, I don't feel like speaking about stickers, and I certainly don't want to say anything negative about stickers, so I'm not going to. But something we haven't talked about because it isn't there, but it also is there, which I think is the biggest flaw in this model. I'm talking, of course, about empty space. On the real car, the entire center section, that cockpit and engine section, is entirely detached from each of the wheels and fender parts. However, on this model, at this scale, that empty space is incredibly difficult slash impossible to depict, and so the designers depicted it using a lot of black bricks, but also sometimes it's depicted using stickers in some places, and I think at this scale it was impossible to not show that space slash show it using black bricks to probably retain some level of rigidity. And so the design of this model, I don't think it's bad, but I do think that Lamborghini Lambo Vision whatever, I think that's one of the least translatable cars to take from real car virtually to LEGO model in reality. But I said I thought this was the strangest Speed Champions model at this scale to date. I think a close second is the McLaren Solus GT, which came out last year, I believe, and at the time I probably said it's soulless, and I probably said that it looks crazy and weird and out there, but compared to the Vision, it is actually a pretty nice depiction of the real car. This car was also coincidentally, I think, designed for a video game, and if you put these two cars side by side, one looks a little more cohesive and complete than the other. But the McLaren Solus is immediately disqualified because it is not accurate at this scale, because modern Speed Champions are 8 studs wide and the McLaren Solus is 9 studs wide, so they cheated. Unless Speed Champions is making SUVs and stuff, and then I think they make exceptions in certain cases, but I'm not going to look through them all right now. And so if you were harboring hopes to have a Lamborghini Lambo Vision GT in real life, well, you're in luck. I think Gran Turismo as a video game is like $70. Of course, you need a PlayStation as well to acquire it there. On Amazon, there are some knockoff Pow Pow Power Wheels versions of this car, which kids can literally ride in. I think they're like $500, but my kid's got a couple of birthdays coming up, so maybe eat all the dinner that your mom made you and say thank you, even if you don't like it, and you have to take 2 bites of everything on your plate, unless you want to stay at this scale for the rest of your life. Honestly, the most likely place my kids will own this car is in Roblox. There's a game called Jailbreak, and there's a car called the M12 Molten in that car that's modeled after this car. But I'll tell you what, Roblox is gonna cost you in the long run a lot more than $500. Or I think your best option, at least in this one case, is to follow my example and buy this car from LEGO for $27. I think you'll really enjoy the build. I think you'll really enjoy the end result. Let me know what you think about this car in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Personally, I'm just glad Lamborghini finally did enough to get me to be a real fan.